Hello and welcome to the Art Blair Stones YouTube channel. My name is Charlie Blair Oliphant and I will be talking to you for the next few minutes or so about the Art Blair Stones. So I thought with this video I would call it the origins of the Art Blair Stones, because this is the first sort of video I've made of this type. This is basically the first video which hasn't consisted of people lifting stones onto barrels. So this one's going to be hopefully a bit more informative and, as I say, engaging and entertaining. Now, another reason I got behind this and I thought this would be a good idea is because my daughter Diana, who's 7, she started her own YouTube channel and she gets really excited, you know, every video, and it's a big deal for her, and I think she thinks she's going to be the next big thing, and it's great. But yeah, what would be amazing if you'd have time to do it is that she's got 4 subscribers, and it's called The Groovy Gang, and she's into slime and mixing slime, and it's a bit of fun, and if you would like to subscribe to that, fantastic. I'll put a link in the description of the video if that's something that you would, I don't know, like to, you know, show some support towards her. It's hard not to talk about the origins of the Art Blair Stones without talking about my own personal interest in strength athletics and sports, and that obviously had a large, considerable bearing on how things sort of progressed. And being, I guess, growing up in the sort of 80s, and I'm trying to think, the 80s, it seemed to be quite a significant decade for strength. There was things like, I don't know, that you had your Jean-Claude Van Dammes and your Arnold Schwarzeneggers and your Sylvester Stallones, Dolph Lundgrens, Mr. T, He-Man, Popeye, although I think he probably predates the 80s, but nevertheless, a similar sort of vein. I live on a farm. I mean, the Art Blair Stones isn't really, it's not really my main thing. It's more of a hobby. In fact, arguably, it's an expensive hobby. But yeah, there's a sort of culture of sort of strength on the farm. Obviously, strongman was a significant thing. I've said this before in podcasts and things that. Well, I was at a boarding school, so I wasn't really home that often. I mean, I really loved coming home. I really enjoyed being at home. It was kind of weird to me. I never really got used to being away. In fact, I was away from home more than I was at it. I was at school most of the time. So obviously, in winter holidays, there was things like obviously there was Christmas. We got off for Christmas and New Year. And that seemed to sort of coincide with a lot of strongman, World's Strongest Man. Yeah, I associated Christmas and being indoors and snow and like present opening, that kind of thing, with, I guess, with like World's Strongest Man and Strongman. Going back to the farm, we have this farm, and one of the things on the farm is that we have the Blairgowrie and Rattray Highland Games on the farm. So it's in one of the fields. It's called Bogle's Field. The reason it's called Bogle's Field is because when my father was a very small boy, he remembers seeing a tatty bogle in the field. Now, a tatty bogle is another name for a scarecrow. I guess it's kind of like a local name around here for a scarecrow. So needless to say, you know, the gossip is rife, and everybody's trying to work out why is it called Bogle's Field? Is it associated with ghosts or goblins or whatever? But no, it's I probably shouldn't have said anything, but it really harks back to that time that my father saw this tatty bogle scarecrow in that field. So anyway, in the early 90s, the Blairgowrie and Rattray Highland Games moved to Bogle's Field, and our family was very much involved in the Highland Games, and my father was, well, he is chieftain of the games still, but I was sort of roped latterly into helping with the sort of the scores of like the heavy events, like the caber and the hammer and the shot, weight over the bar, that kind of thing, you know, the heavy events. And my job was basically, as a small boy, to write the scores down and tell the local press the results, the scores. So yeah, that was going on. And actually, I remember again when I was a small boy, again obviously being a fan of strongman events, and I remember there was being really sort of blown away. I went to Blair Athol Highland Games. I think it was a school trip, and there was I can't remember the year, but there was Ted Van der Paar was there, and he had just won World's Strongest Man. So strongman fans would know that year, and Manfred Hoebel was there. And I just remember, God, he was absolutely enormous, Manfred Hoebel. I mean, he was like, he just kind of, he didn't really sort of look human, he looked, it was quite extraordinary, to see kind of that sort of going on. And one of the things I remember particularly about the World's Strongest Man competitions was the Atlas Stones. And they were usually at the final event, and they were very significant. Usually the people would be determined by the overall events on that final event. So it was very significant, and it seemed to encompass what World's Strongest Man was all about. And this was particularly, I think there was a pure strength competition in 1987, and I don't know what happened with World's Strongest Man that year, but they had this thing called pure strength, and there were three main sort of protagonists, if you like. It was Jeff Capes, Bill Kazmaier, and John Paul Sigmarsson. And for some reason, they had the McGlashan Stones as one of the events, and there's very iconic image pictures of John Paul Sigmarsson tackling the McGlashan Stones, and that kind of got into my psyche a bit, seeing John Paul Sigmarsson throwing these stones around like kind of balloons, and so yeah, stones was it was a big part, it was significant, and so I guess from there it was a sort of a natural progression to want to create my own stones. And so yeah, I think it was 2008, I started to make my first stones. But before I made my first stones, I was quite into sort of books and things, and like Scottish history, stone lifting in general. And I mean, there's a great culture of stone lifting in Scotland, and well, across the world. But I mean, notably in Scotland. I mean, Scotland is littered with manhood stones, as they're called. And there was a book which was quite significant. In fact, I've got it with me here, and I thought I'd lost it, and I was panicking because I was so relieved when I found it. For some reason, it wasn't in my other strength books, and because it's kind of like a precious thing, I guess, and I just wanted to keep it safe. But it's this book here, which is called Of Stones and Strength. And this had quite an influence on me, this book. And this book was written by Steve Jeck and Peter Martin. Now, I never met them, but I met Peter Martin's son, who was also called Peter Martin, and he was kind enough to sign the inside of this book for me, which I'll show you, which was a big deal, I thought. So that's, I don't know if you can see that or not, but yeah, he signed that for me, which was nice. And he actually came to visit, he actually came to look at the sort of the first Ard Blair stones, and he kind of gave them the seal of approval, which was great, because Peter Martin Jr., the son of the Peter Martin who wrote the book, is widely considered to be an authority on the history of Scottish stones and their sort of location, and he did a lot of research into it, and tragically he's not with us anymore. He suffered a heart attack a couple of years ago. I can't remember exactly when, but and another sad thing, obviously, was that he was actually writing the sort of quintessential book on historic stones at the time, which is hopefully somebody will take up that mantle, because he had a wealth of knowledge, and yeah, he's sadly missed in the sort of stone lifting fraternity. Again, I can't underestimate how much this book, Stones and Strength, made on me, and in particular the McGlashan stones, because I'd seen them on TV. I'd seen John Paul Sigmarsson throw them around, and yeah, I guess it had a lasting impact. And I have interest. I actually went to Amazon to get a price to see if that book was available, and it's out of print, sadly. But I did see 2 copies available, and one of them is £393.06, and the other one is £395.87. Although that one, the good news with that one is that includes free delivery. So yeah, that's quite extraordinary to me. That I mean, it's not a thick book. You know, it's an informative book, but it's probably entered the realms of collectability among stone lifters and just enthusiasts in this kind of subject. That concludes the first part of the instalment of The Origin of the Ardblair Stones. Part 2 will be coming shortly. Until then, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content. Until next time, thanks a lot. Bye.